Retirement, it's not what it used to be. The rules have changed. Baby Boomers, Gen X, Millennials, and now Gen Z. Wealth is looked at differently to each generation, and each generation uses tools differently to get there. Today, I sit with a working, professional wealth advisor. We're breaking down the shifts and showing you what retirement looks like to a trained wealth advisor. So stick around with me, your new host, but don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. You're listening to Financial Sense, Arizona's financial podcast that gives you insights that you could only get from a friend in the business. Recorded and brought to you by National Bank of Arizona, the bank of the community. Hello, I'm your host, Margaret Paddock, the director of the private bank here at National Bank of Arizona. And joining me today at this episode is Jon Poure. He is a wealth advisor at Zion's Wealth Advisors. Welcome, Jon.
Thanks, Margaret, for having me. I've been here 15 years and finally am getting to join the podcast.
Well, it's about time.
Thank you.
Just so everyone knows, we are not professional podcasters. I am a real-life private banker, and Jon is a working wealth advisor.
Yes, and a father of two. I'm not quite an influencer yet, but maybe this is the start.
So let's talk about the mindset and the tools about these different generations. I know when I think about my parents and my children, we all think about money and finances different. A lot of it has to do with our background and how we were raised and what's been instilled with us. So how has planning for retirement, how does it change depending on what generation you're in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the clients that I work with are baby boomers. They have a lot of wealth. Most of them are in retirement or just about approaching retirement. They're a conservative generation, I would say, as a whole. Their parents grew up during the Great Depression.
Yep.
A lot of those values and experiences were passed on to them. They also worked for a lot of companies that had pensions, and it really wasn't until the mid to late 70s during the Gen X generation where the 401ks started to come into play.
Okay.
And then you have millennials, which are up and coming right now. I would say they're different from the standpoint that, a 35-year-old millennial, right there in the heart of it, has about 20 to 25% of their net worth in the market.
Wow.
And then when you contrast that to the baby boomers, at the same age when they were 35, they only had about 6% of their net worth in the market. So millennials have definitely adopted equity investing or market investing to a greater extent than the baby boomers have. And then the latest cohort would be the Gen Z.
Yep.
I don't have a lot of experience with Gen Z, but they've adopted micro investing, crypto, and have approached savings in a different way, working in a different way. So to your point, each generation that we work with has different challenges, different sets of personalities in the way that they view money.
So you said a little bit about investment vehicles, but how do taxes and tax planning play into financial planning? Yeah,
no, taxes is one of those things that's always changing. So, as a financial advisor, we have to stay up on top of those changes. If you go all the way back to the 70s, that's when the 401k came into play. They started to expand IRAs and the way that you can contribute to those. They added inflation riders to those in the late 70s and early 80s. Those type of personal saving vehicles really started to proliferate. Before that, it was mostly pensions.
Okay.
So tax planning is an important part of the conversation, and we definitely want to make sure that clients are diversified in the types of accounts that they utilize, because when they do reach that retirement age and they're going to start withdrawing out of these accounts, they're going to have different tax implications, and we want to make sure that they're well diversified across those.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about recent tax laws, like the big, beautiful bill that was just passed? How is that going to impact all of us, any of us?
Yeah, over the last 8 years, there's definitely been a lot of changes. The Secure Act 1.0, Secure Act 2.0, the One Big Beautiful Bill. Yep. They've changed RMD rules. They've also changed the standard deduction.
What does RMD mean?
The required minimum distribution that clients have to take out of their IRAs once they reach a certain age in retirement.
Okay.
They've been putting money into IRAs or into 401ks for most of their life. And we're starting to see this mostly with baby boomers. And so the IRS starts to require them to take money out of those qualified plans. With the Secure Act, they changed that and delayed it. So now versus 70 and a half, it's 73.
Okay.
So it allowed them to take those RMDs a little bit later, continued the tax deferral a little bit longer.
Okay.
The One Big Beautiful Bill also cemented in a lot of estate planning exemption amounts. So that's a hot topic of conversation that we've been having with a lot of baby boomers that we've been working with currently. I think another big one that I would say is more impactful for the younger generations is that 401k plans now are required to set up auto enrollment. So when you join a company and you meet the criteria to be in the 401k plan, they're going to auto enroll you in that.
Okay.
And I think that's a very important feature that any young saver should be contributing to their 401k if they're part of a company that offers it.
Yeah, and that's great advice. Kind of acts as a safety net.
Exactly.
For them. So you're a wealth advisor. What is wealth, and how much does someone need to retire?
That's a great question. There's, those rules of thumb that everyone thinks about.
Is there a magic number?
Everyone has a different magic number.
Okay. Makes sense.
I think the back of the envelope, you take your annual expense and you multiply it by 25. So let's say you spend $100,000 a year, multiply that by 25. That's $2.5 million that you should have saved. And that rule of thumb kind of came about because of the 4% rule. So usually in retirement, of a retirement portfolio, you want to withdraw about 4% to supplement your income if you have enough saved for that. 100,000 multiplied by 25, that gives you $2.5 million.
Okay.
Take 4% off of that, that should be enough to cover your expenses throughout retirement. But like we just said, there's no magic number. Everyone should have a plan in place that they can follow, because that's going to be tailored to them based upon their ambitions, their goals, and how they view and see money. Everyone views it and sees it differently. I think a big topic too that I focus on with my clients is, what's the purpose of the money? What do you want to accomplish with this? And we try to have that more theoretical discussion versus just, hard expenses. I got to pay utility bills. I got to pay gas. Got to pay for food. Everyone has those needs, but there's also those softer, more emotional reasons for why they've saved the money and what they want to do with it.
Yep.
And so having clients kind of hone in on what those goals are, that's where I think we really help clients.
What is wealth? What does wealth mean? How do you define that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, people think of investing, they think of money, but wealth is really not simply about having a lot of things or having a lot of money. It's about having enough.
Okay.
And so sitting down and working with my clients, we try to talk about, what is enough, because that's where really the risk management starts to come in, taking care of your children, feeding, making sure you have enough food, you have shelter, those basic needs is the way I look at wealth. So I kind of have a higher view of it than just investing or having enough money.
I feel like sometimes when you tell people we work for wealth management, or you say I'm a wealth advisor, people believe that they need to have tens of millions of dollars to be able to work with us. And that's not the case. So I think it's important that you describe the way we look at wealth management.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, there is this kind of prestige or this stereotype that it's, the Wolf of Wall Street or something like that.
Yeah.
But in reality, helping clients be successful in life based upon what their goals are, whether that's, saving an additional amount of their money for college education for their grandkids, or making sure that they understand where each dollar is going by proper budgeting.
Yeah.
These are all types of discussions that we have with our clients, and it's much more than just, complex financial products.
Yep. So sometimes I feel like we have clients where they don't think they have enough to work with a wealth manager or a wealth advisor. And it's because they feel like wealth is this big aspirational dream that is out of their reach. But wealth can mean different things to different people, and it's very personal. So it's my belief that if you're comfortable with what you have, then you're wealthy. And so wealthy is very different from family to family. And I'd also say that being in this industry for almost 30 years, The clients that we've had, even if they have tens of millions of dollars, their number one concern still is always running out of money. I've always found that just fascinating, that they have so much and they've saved so much, yet they are so concerned about running out of money.
Yeah, I see that quite a bit with some of my older clients that I've worked with. They have these large nest eggs that they've saved, for decades. And they kind of always have that feeling of not enough. And I think that kind of goes back to the generational discussion we had at the beginning.
True.
A lot of those baby boomers, were kind of indoctrinated by their parents that lived through the Great Depression and had very hard financial times. And so they've been frugal their whole lives. Their money has compounded and grown, and they kind of just always have that feeling of not enough.
When is the right amount of time or the right dollar amount to call a wealth advisor like yourself?
It's a great question, Margaret. We work with clients of all sizes. So whether you're just starting out, building up your savings and planning for retirement, we'll work with you. All the way up to clients that have millions of dollars. We'll work with them as well.
Great. Let's talk about basic retirement, building wealth strategies that no matter what generation you are, you can use those strategies.
Yeah, there's definitely some rules of thumb and best practices that I talk to clients about, whether they're just starting out or they're savvy investors. The first one is saving early and saving consistently.
Okay.
Anywhere from 10 to 15% of your gross income, you should start putting away. Time or compounding is so important and is amazing. I think a great example of this is Warren Buffett. Many people know him as one of the best investors around in our time.
Yep.
And one thing that people don't realize is that, as of 2020, he was worth around $85 billion.
Is that all?
Yeah, that's it. But 81.5 billion of that 85 billion came after age 65. So let that sink in. So the majority of that wealth compounded and grew after his 61st birthday.
Okay.
As of 2020, I think he was around 80 something, 90. So that's, I think, a good example of how starting early, which he started when he was 10 and became a serious investor then.
Wow.
He grew his net worth to about $1 million back then at age 30, but he's been investing for over 3/4 of a century.
Yeah.
And so that's really, I think, a great example of the power of time and investing over the long term.
Yeah, that's so important and such a great point. And I always tell my kids the exact same thing. They ask me about advice on 401k, and I always let them know it's not exactly what you necessarily invest in; it's that you are investing.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think the second important point that we try to talk to clients about is building a plan.
Yep.
And then the first rule of that is plan that your plan will not go as planned. So you always want to bake.
Sounds like a tongue twister.
Yeah, it is. I had to write that down before I came here today. But building a plan is so important. And that's one of the main things that we do with our clients is making sure that they have a financial plan. We inventory the assets. We look at all the moving parts. We set the goals. And then it helps us have those conversations with them or with our clients as they go through life. I think the third one that goes along with building a plan is making sure you have an emergency fund set up first.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes back to the first rule of a plan is making, plan that is going to go wrong.
Right.
So having an emergency fund allows you to weather a lot of storms that may come your way.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can control. So set up that savings account. We'll work with a wealth advisor at Zion's Wealth Advisors. We'll build out a plan, and then you can start saving early and often.
Sounds good to me. Do you have any other tips you'd like to share?
Yeah, there's a couple other tips down the ring that I like to talk about. You want to keep the plan simple.
Yep.
You want to keep costs low, and you want to make sure you stay the course, which kind of feeds back into the emergency fund. Having that allows you to stay the course during rough times. There's also the 4% rule. So a lot of people ask, how much should I plan to be able to withdraw from my portfolio once I'm in retirement? There's also, how much of my current income do you think I'll need during retirement? There's that rule of 75. So 75% of your gross income is a good way to kind of determine how much you'll need once you start retirement.
Okay.
But those are all good starting places. And then when you sit down with a wealth advisor at Zion's Wealth Advisors, we'll tailor the plan more specifically to your specific case. But those are good. Those are good key financial rules to follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes financial sense.
Makes financial sense.
Jon, this has been a fantastic discussion, and I really, really appreciate you sharing all of your time and talent with our audience here today. And if
I don't know about talent, but
well, there's a lot of talent there.
Thanks, Margaret. I've enjoyed my time here. We have gotten a little philosophical, but I think there's some good practical rules to follow as you start saving for retirement, and we'd love to work with you guys.
Thanks. Okay, thank you for joining us today, and check out more episodes from your favorite podcasting platform or watch us on YouTube. And don't forget to like and subscribe. That's it for today.